Disclaimer: No Self-Hate is a mental health awareness platform, not a licensed therapy provider or certified psychological organization. All content is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice or a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are in crisis or need immediate support, please contact a licensed mental health provider or call, text 988 for the Crisis Lifeline, US only. Some topics may include sensitive mental health themes. Viewer discretion is advised. This channel may include brief use of copyrighted material under Fair Use, U.S. Copyright Law, Section 107, for commentary, education, and discussion.
Hello, and welcome to No Self-Hate, Season 1, Episode 3, What is Anger? So, to recap our journey together, let's start with Episode 1, where we dove deep into our self-hatred to identify ways that we are self-hating. In Episode 2, we went to our trauma to address our unresolved trauma and to apply solutions to that trauma. Now, in Episode 3, we are going to focus on anger. And the question we want to answer from today's episode is, am I angry? Am I an angry person? And if so, how do I fix it? Now, we've put together a lot of information for you today. Now, we're going to have to go through it a little fast because it's a lot, but I'm going to make sure that I break this information down for you so that you can apply this information to yourself to assess where your anger is in your life. And the goal is to resolve that anger or have better ways of managing that anger. So, without further ado, let's dive straight into this episode. Oh, one last thing. I want to thank all of my supporters, all of the people, all of my subscribers. I don't believe in fans. That's something that I don't believe in, but I do believe in people who support me with different perspectives, or we may share the same perspectives. But nevertheless, I want to thank you all for your attention, for your effort, for your time, for your energy, and we're going to continue to go up. I'm going to continue to provide high quality content for you all, self-improving content that's meant to make us better as people, us better as humans, so we can show up for ourselves and show up for those around us. So, thank you again. Let's get right into it. All right, everybody, let's get started. So, you know the routine by now. Let's relax. Let's put ourselves in a position of accountability. Let's make sure we're not defensive about anything. We're going to stand in that mirror. We're going to look at ourselves. We're going to identify what we see, and we're going to throw solutions to whatever need requires solutions. And we're going to learn some things about ourselves this episode. We're going to learn, if we're angry people, if the people outside of us may see anger, if we have conscious or subconscious anger, how does this anger affect our relationships? We will be able to answer all of those questions about ourselves by the end of this episode. So let's dive right into it. All right, so what is anger? So, to me, anger is the inability to manage toxic or hostile emotions that could lead to abuse of people, whether that's verbally, physically. It's an inability to regulate one's emotions, and it makes a person fall susceptible to their frustrated emotions or different things like that because they don't have the tools that they need, the emotional intelligence that they need to be able to manage their anger. So anger is something that is good and bad because I've seen anger with boxers that get angry because they got hit and then they end up performing better. And then I've seen anger where people have gotten so frustrated with an issue that they resorted to violence or they resorted to verbal assaults and or different things like that. So what do you think anger is? Before we get into the definition and synchronize our clocks to make sure we're all on the same page. But before we get there, just think about it. What is anger to you? All right. So, the definition of anger is a primary human emotion, a physiological and psychological response to perceived threats, injustices, betrayals, boundary violations, or emotional pain. Ooh, I could definitely relate to that emotional pain one, where you get a little angry from that. Boundary violations as well, injustices, betrayals. Definitely betrayals can trigger your anger. It activates the body's fight or flight system, preparing us to protect ourselves, set boundaries, or correct perceived wrongs. All right, so let's look at some characteristics of anger. Anger is more than just an emotion. It is a full body experience influenced by biological, cognitive, and behavioral, moral, and emotional systems. Here are the 5 characteristics of anger: biological response, cognitive patterns, behavioral expression, moral and ethical roots, and protective function. So let's go into that a little deeper. Let's identify what do they mean exactly by biological response. So biological response is the automatic physical reactions triggered in the body when anger is perceived as a threat or stressor. These responses are controlled by the nervous system and are designed to prepare the body for immediate action, like that release of adrenaline and different things like that. So anger, I believe, is a necessary emotion, across the board, because there are opportunities for growth or opportunities for success within anger, where, let's say, for instance, you get upset about something, you can take anger and use that to go work out or go do something more productive. So it's all in how you manage anger. And we'll get into that a little more. But as we focus on the biological response, it's just those physical reactions, your body getting ready to defend or set a boundary or, any perceived threat or anything like that. Your body, your mind is telling your body to prepare, fight or flight. Now, some examples of that are activation of the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, increased heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing rate, release of cortisol, stress hormone, and adrenaline, heightening alertness and readiness to act. So that's the biological response. Can you relate to that biological response when you feel yourself getting angry? Next up, we got cognitive patterns, the mental processes and thought patterns that influence how we interpret situations and justify our anger. These are often automatic, distorted, and emotionally charged. So cognitive patterns, the way that we think, right? I always say that you have a choice to believe whatever it is that you choose to believe. For some reason, I see people pick up certain beliefs that I don't know if they generated, researched, and vetted properly, but they just have these beliefs, right? So, for example, you take 2 children in school, 2, 10-year-olds or something, and one pushes one of them. Now, the person that got pushed doesn't have to respond with anger and violence if they don't want to. But there are things that we learn within our culture, within our community, that if this thing happens, I should do this. And sometimes we feel like we don't have a choice in the matter, but you always have a choice. You always have a choice on how you react. There are no laws that say you have to do anything toxic, anything hostile, anything violent. There are no laws that say that. That was something that you learned from within your environment, okay? Your mentality. You were taught these things. It's called mimetic desires, and we'll have some more information on that in later episodes where we talk about mimetic desires. But mimetic desires basically say that everything that you learned, you had to be taught, right? And we hang on to these beliefs thinking that this is the way things are supposed to go. This is the way I'm supposed to handle my anger, right? But we have to change those patterns. And it starts with changing our mentality and giving ourselves choices, right? Breaking those ties and those bonds to the past in the old ways that we used to think. All right, so some examples of cognitive patterns are all or nothing thinking. They never respect me. Overgeneralization. This always happens to me. Moral labeling, viewing people or actions as entirely right or wrong without nuance. So we have to, majority of humans operate in the gray area, right? Where they can't necessarily, where you can't necessarily say they were wrong and they can't necessarily say they were right. Majority of us exist in that gray area in between. Okay. So when we're morally labeling, you know, with characteristics of anger, when we're morally labeling, we're viewing people and actions as right or wrong. But right and wrong can be a very subjective thing, right? The way that one person was taught right may be different in the way that another person was taught right or wrong. We're coming from different backgrounds, different areas. So what is right or wrong? What is right to you and what's wrong to you? And does it match the shared reality or the shared definitions of right and wrong? And are there clear definitions of right and wrong? We don't know, right? And then assumptions, believing someone's intent was to hurt you without evidence. Now, that's a little gray there, because as we get deeper into this episode, we'll start talking about different behaviors that people can show that could resemble anger. One thing could be gaslighting, right? Where someone can try to convince you that what you're saying isn't true, right? So this assumptions piece here is a little gray, but I do understand what they're saying. Believing someone's intent was to hurt you without evidence, right? Doesn't mean that they weren't trying to hurt you if you don't have evidence, but you normally want to get this type of evidence before you go into these deep thought patterns about, whether someone is trying to harm you or not. Next up, we have behavioral expression. The outward actions or reactions we display in response to feeling angry. This includes both destructive and constructive behaviors. Now, we'll look into constructive and destructive behaviors a little later, but for now, this should suffice. It's basically the outward actions or reactions we display in response to feeling angry. I've seen baseball players break a bat when they're angry because they got struck out. That would be an example of the behavioral expression piece. So how do you express yourself when you're angry? What do you do? Right? Ask yourself that. What do I do to express anger when I feel it and it's overloading and I don't know what to do? I can't hold it anymore. What do you do? All right. Some examples are yelling or raising one's voice, withdrawal from conversation or giving the silent treatment, been through that, aggression, either verbal insults or physical slamming doors, been through that, boundary setting through assertive communication, I need you to stop interrupting me, and different things like that. That is how people express anger sometimes. I am familiar with all of these. I have done every one of these. Yell, raise my voice because I couldn't handle my anger, withdraw from conversation or giving a silent treatment as if my silence is some form of retribution or retaliation, aggression with verbal insults or physical slamming doors. Yeah, I've seen all of this in my lifetime. Boundary setting through assertive communication. I need you to stop interrupting me. I go through that all of the time. I will shut down sometime if I'm trying to communicate and I can't communicate in a civil way with someone. I will shut down. I do not want to communicate as barbarians. I do not want to communicate in uncivilized ways. Communication, we got an episode of that coming up as well. But communication is just our ability to exchange information. And in my opinion, that doesn't require disrespect. That doesn't require arguing. That doesn't require a fight. It just requires us exchanging information and coming to a compromise on something or coming into an agreement on something. That is the point of communication, in my opinion. So I do not like to be interrupted sometimes because I work very hard not to interrupt people. It requires a lot of emotional intelligence to hear someone talking and then you have something to say, but holding on to that and giving that person that space and that respect to finish their piece in their conversation and then remember everything you wanted to say and then bring that to them, right? That's very difficult, but we have to do it because we could set off each other's triggers. And when one person is angry, it's just contagious. Anger is a contagious thing. All right. Next up, we got moral and ethical roots. So anger often stems from perceived violations of deeply held personal or cultural values. These moral frameworks influence when and why we feel justified in our anger. Let's think about that. Right? We got different religions. We have different rules and laws that people must abide by in different religions. And, we hold religion very high as humans. So when someone violates some of those codes, it can cause you to be angry. It can cause you to display anger or angry behavior. Right? Some examples: feeling angry when witnessing injustice, disloyalty, or disrespect. So that's a good one. Growing up in my household, you could not disrespect adults, talk back to adults. That was one thing that was not tolerated. If you did, you would find someone's anger very quickly. Okay, it would happen almost instantaneously. Respect is one of those things that, we have to get a deeper understanding of. But yes, disrespect can cause someone to be very angry. Very angry. All right, becoming upset when someone breaks a promise or betrays trust. Yes, that can cause anger. Someone breaks your trust or lets you down purposefully. They snake you or anything like that. That can cause you to be very upset. And then feeling outraged by social inequality, bullying, or dishonesty. Yes, all of those things could definitely trigger some anger within, most human beings, I would like to say. All right, so protective function. So anger frequently serves as a defense mechanism, masking more vulnerable emotions to maintain a sense of power or safety. This form of anger helps us cope, but may prevent healing if not addressed. All right. So vulnerable emotions to maintain a sense of power or safety. We're masking these emotions. So we'll get angry to show, hey, leave me alone. I'm really crazy. I'll really, right? And then you go to that place and some people call your bluff. So now you got to go all the way through with whatever anger or whatever you're trying to mask. And you may not even really be an angry person. You may just be scared in those moments, right? Where you just try to, puff up so that people won't harm you, so that you feel safe, right? Some examples of protective function is anger, hiding fear. For example, lashing out when afraid of being abandoned. Real. Anger, masking guilt or shame. For example, getting defensive after making a mistake. I see that all the time. Someone would get mad because they made a mistake and you saw it. I've seen that before. Reacting with anger instead of expressing sadness or hurt. Yeah, I believe as humans, some of us view expressing sadness or hurt as a weakness or something that doesn't make us feel strong, I disagree. And we'll get into that a little later, why I disagree with that. But I believe this is something that, if you feel hurt or sad, you should express that. It shouldn't turn into something else, right? But it happens. So, now, before we go into conscious versus subconscious anger, I want you to think about some of those things that we just went over: protective functioning, moral and ethical roots, behavioral expression, cognitive patterns. I want you to think about those, and I want you to think about how you play a role in those different things, and how your anger plays a role in your life in those different things. Okay, so anger isn't all bad. Anger can be bad when mismanaged. All right, and we'll touch on that a little later. But identify your anger, embrace your anger, bring it closer to you. Be able to specifically talk about the different things that trigger you, the different things that hurt you, the different things that make you feel unsafe. You have to be able to talk about these things so that you could have them visibly in front of you, so that you can begin to throw solutions at them, because we're taking the self-empowered, solution-oriented approach to resolving some of our issues, our internal issues, right? And one of the biggest issues I see in the world right now is anger, road rage. People are just displacing their anger because it's unresolved. It is still aggravated. It is still active, and they don't have the tools to break this stuff down, so that, again, the greatest feeling that I've ever felt was happiness. Anger to me is the opposite of happiness. I've never felt angry, excuse me. I've never felt that way. Okay. So when you feel angry, you're not increasing your chances of achieving or enhancing your happiness. When you're angry, you're not enhancing your fulfillment opportunities, right? So anger can be a bad thing to us. So now let's go into conscious versus subconscious anger, so we can identify what's going on there with us. So the key differences between conscious and subconscious anger is, with conscious anger, you are aware you're angry, directly felt and expressed, even if poorly, often processed through words or healthy outlets. The trigger is clear, can be resolved through dialogue and reflection. So that's conscious anger. Something happens and you say, hey, I am really angry with this right now. But you're not being toxic. You're not yelling. You're not disrespecting any humans. You are just communicating what you feel, and you're resolving it. Part of resolving that anger is getting it out and communicating it. But where I think we run into hurdles as humans is we lose control of that communication of that anger. It becomes so overwhelming that we don't take the time to try to identify exactly what we're feeling and why we're feeling it, and communicate that to someone in a solution oriented manner, where we're not looking for anything negative or bad to happen to someone. We're actually just, having this natural emotion as a human being and communicating that in healthy ways. All right. Now, subconscious anger is different. Subconscious anger, you are unaware you're angry. You ever found yourself in that place where something happened and you're just going off, and then you look up and everybody looking at you and they like, whoa. And you're like, wow, I just snapped. I guess I got some anger. I got some unresolved anger because I wasn't even aware I just really did that. I was just doing what felt good. Sometimes for some people, expressing that energy and venting that energy can feel good to them whenever they're venting that anger, right? Indirectly expressed, For example, sarcasm, illness, withdrawal, leaks through behavior, body or emotions like anxiety, right? So it could seep through. Like, again, you're not paying attention to these triggers. You can't observe yourself. The people outside of you are observing you. So you're just going through your feelings, feeling what you want to feel, not realizing that you're feeling anger. You're operating in anger. You're putting your relationships through anger. Some of us, unfortunately, the truth is some of us experience anger every day. When was the last time you went an entire day without feeling angry? Right? And how often have you just found yourself in an angry place where you were unaware of it? The trigger is hidden, denied, or displaced. So sometimes you don't even know, or you're not consciously paying attention to your triggers. You know, they're hidden. They're in hiding. They're not consciously available for you to recognize them because you're so consciously within your emotions that you cannot consciously observe or try to observe your actions. It just, your emotions feel good to express, right? And you don't know why, but it just feels great to express your emotions any way that you want to. But we could be expressing ourselves or communicating in toxic ways that could tear down others or tear us down or keep us in this infinite loop and cycle of anger. And the problem with anger, the biggest issue I have with anger is that anger limits or minimizes your ability to be truly happy. It minimizes and limits your ability to achieve the fulfillment and the goals and all of the things that you want to do with your life. So that's the real problem that I have with anger within myself. What issues do you have with anger? What subconscious anger do you have? What conscious anger are you aware of? Are you communicating your anger in positive, solution-oriented ways? Or are you toxic? Or do you display anger to everyone that comes to you? Or do you have anyone that you won't get angry with? Right? We need to identify these things. So what anger do you think you're unaware of that you display? All right, that's what we want to get from that. Next up, we got examples of conscious anger. So conscious anger, I know I'm mad. Example one, a coworker takes credit for your idea. You say, I'm angry that you didn't acknowledge my contribution. See, they may not understand that. When you say that to someone, they may get defensive, right? Because you're giving them a criticism or something that they may not like. It's something that may be negative, right? So they may react in a different way, but you did your job in a healthy way, in a respectful, honorable way to another human being, because we love all humans. We want to respect all humans, every human being on earth. Because if you recall in episode 1, what is self-hate? There's a such thing as a species level self-hater. So we don't want to qualify for that. So we have to give the humans around us the space and the respect and the honor that we would want for ourselves, right? So next up, example 2, your partner forgets your birthday. You confront them directly and express your hurt. There you go, right? Because that could go a lot of ways. Your partner forgets your birthday. You could get an attitude, go sit up in your room and close the door. You could give them the silent treatment. There are a lot of things that you can do that are toxic that would not contribute to the greater good of the situation. But when you are able to directly communicate exactly what is wrong and how it makes you feel, you have to be vulnerable to be able to do that. You have to be able to say, hey, I'm hurt, and not worry about looking strong and all of that. You're just sticking to the process or the format for properly venting and communicating your frustrations or your anger. All right. And then example 3, you witness injustice and feel a surge of anger, motivating you to protest or speak out. Again, that's conscious anger. Hey, this thing happened to this person or to these people. This is wrong. I'm going to I'm going to go out and I am going to legally express my discontent with this situation. Right? See, these are positive ways of going through anger, right? So the conscious stuff is kind of easy as long as you're communicating exactly how you feel, being accountable. You're going to have to be vulnerable to communicate these things, and you're going to have to be solution oriented, and you're going to have to stay on focus with the greater good in any conversation you have. That can be tough, whether that's confrontation, conflict, whatever. If you and the other person you're talking to can establish a greater good, that, hey, at the end of this conversation, we want to achieve this goal. We want to achieve this goal. Now, this is a tough conversation. We may get lost in translation, but I always want us to come back to the fact that we want to achieve the greater good for this situation. Not the greater negative, not the greater bad, but the greater good. And you want to kind of do that for all of your situations, because remember, all we're trying to do is communicate. And it's very difficult at this stage of humanity for people to properly communicate all the time. Sometimes not everybody has the same emotional technology. And that's the point of no self-hate. The goal is to accelerate the evolution of human emotional intelligence for this exact reason. Now, we're not saying never be angry, but we are saying manage your anger. Identify your anger. Find healthy ways to communicate your anger. Love each other, respect each other. Keep the greater good in the forefront. All right? You know you're angry. You feel it in your body. You may even express it clearly. That is a healthy way to express anger, right? Not everyone's able to handle that way, but that is a great way to express your anger. Now, examples of subconscious anger. So subconscious anger is I don't realize I'm angry. So disguise this other emotions or behavior. For example, sarcasm, masking bitterness towards others in past experiences. I've always said that sarcasm was a form of anger. Some people try to say that it's comedy, and I get it. I get how it could be comedy in certain aspects, right? But nevertheless, sarcasm is like it say, masking bitterness towards something or others, right? Next up, procrastination, hidden resentment toward being told what to do. Now, I've experienced this with some of my children sometime, where they procrastinate because they have resentment towards what I've asked them to do or what I've tasked them to do. So they have this subconscious anger. I'll make sure they watch this episode. Next up, we have depression. Repressed anger turned inward, often linked to helplessness. Ooh, depression. When you feel that you have no moves on the chessboard and that you have to accept what is happening. But what I would assure you when it comes to depression, if there's a will, there's a way. You always have options. The more knowledge that you have in your brain, the more options you're going to have in your life. It's just that simple, right? Next up, we got people pleasing. Again, we're in subconscious anger, examples of that. So people pleasing, I see this all the time in professional environments where people have suppressed anger towards those you feel you can't safely confront. I get that all the time because I am a very strong person. I do not people please. Right? I do not compromise my integrity and my personality and who I choose to be, to acquiesce to the unspoken rules that powerful relationships may require you to have, or something like that. Any person that's in my life that is powerful can count on the fact that I will tell them the truth no matter what. And a lot of people don't know how to value friends like that. I wish I had a friend like that, that had the ability, no matter how much I may disagree or dislike what truth they have to tell me, but have that ability to tell me the truth all the time instead of being a yes man or anything like that. All right. Chronic anxiety, fear of conflict mixed with unacknowledged frustration. So that is huge. Chronic anxiety is subconscious anger. Fear of conflict mixed with unacknowledged frustration. I can kind of relate to that. Growing up where I grew up was one of the toughest places to grow up. So I do remember feeling that chronic anxiety of, fear of conflict mixed with unacknowledged frustration, because I felt helpless. I felt frustrated that I had to take precautions that I felt were extra to feel safe, right? It frustrated me, but I'm here. And yeah, it was some very, very traumatizing situations, which I've resolved, right? But I just, as I think about them and I reference the past for knowledge on this specific, terminology, chronic anxiety, I do remember feeling that feeling, right? And it was subconscious anger. It did make me feel angry. Road rage outbursts, anger from other areas of life erupting in a safe outlet, right? So road rage outbursts, I see so much of this. This is really a bad thing. People driving in their cars, honking horns at each other. You gotta be careful. You just never know what people are going through, right? So, you know, you're out here being, displaying road rage, and you run into the right person one day, right? And they're displacing whatever they're dealing with, and you're displacing it. And then this situation gets crazy. Now you two are in some type of something because you had road rage. You can't control other people. People are going to control themselves. You must control yourself and what you can control. Someone sits at the light an extra 3 seconds because they're looking on their phone. It's not your job to discipline them, because you don't know what that person may be going through, right? We got to be safe out here. No self-hate just started, this year. So as we grow, we'll try to spread information about road rage and different things like that. But not everyone has this information. And not everyone is dealing with their anger and frustration in positive ways. You must keep that in your mind when you're out here displaying road rage. All right. And then passive aggressive behavior. Oh, this is so huge. I see this in professional environments 24/7. And passive aggressive behavior is you say it's fine, but slam a door or forget to help someone. So you say I'm good, but then you go and retaliate some type of secret way, right? Because you don't want to do it outright in the front, right? So that's an example of passive aggressive behavior. And all of this is subconscious anger. Now, I want you to ask yourself, are you operating or using sarcasm? Are you experiencing procrastination? Are you experiencing depression? Are you a people pleaser? If so, that's suppressed anger towards those you feel you can't safely confront, right? Do you have chronic anxiety, road rage outbursts, passive aggressive behavior? If so, you may have subconscious anger. All right. Now, I do qualify for some of these. Yeah, I qualify for a few here, but not many. Not many. Very few, as a matter of fact. I think a lot of us can fall into that hole of passive aggressive behavior, where we say something is fine, but it's really not, because we're not properly dealing with what's frustrating us or letting us down. We're just tucking it away and maybe using retaliation or something to try to deal with it. Chronic anxiety is another one, depending on where you are in the world. Different neighborhoods, different cultures, different things can create chronic anxiety. So those are the two. Procrastination as well. Maybe something that I've experienced in the past. I've given up sarcasm. I realized that to pretend that I'm one of the smartest people when humans may know what 5%, 10% of all available knowledge that's around us, I just gave that up. I don't want to pretend like I'm the smartest person in the room anymore. All right, so subconscious anger. Again, I don't realize I'm angry. So examples: a childhood wound. You were taught good kids don't get mad. Now, as an adult, you never feel angry, but you're often irritated, tired, or emotionally distant. Your anger lives underground. So you were taught to suppress anger, and you don't want to suppress anger. That's how people snap, right? You got to get that stuff out of you in positive, healthy ways. All right, family expectations. You suppress frustration with your parents to keep the peace. Instead of lashing out, you avoid family gatherings and feel drained afterward without knowing why, right? In this example, you just got to have the courage to live and speak your truth. You're here. You're living. We're all living. You shouldn't have to hide who you are or hide your truth because you fear that it won't be accepted or it may be rejected. You're cheating yourself out of life if you're doing that. If you're anybody watching this video and you've been hiding your truth and you're living in the shadows, you're basically living in a prison. A psychological prison that minimizes your freedom to express yourself the way that you choose to express yourself. Now, again, we want to do this in healthy, positive ways, but we have to express ourselves. You can't just keep that energy in without expressing it. Next up, we got workplace compliance. You always say yes at work. Oh God, I see this so much, everyone. Especially when, you may have ambitious people that are willing to do anything to win, right? I see this all the time where there are human beings that are so desperate to win that they would do anything to receive approval, to receive benefit, no matter. I've seen men emasculate themselves. I've seen people play themselves in public and all types of stuff because of the old workplace compliance piece, right? I've seen those exact same people create trauma and drama for other people that are reporting to them or something like that. So this is a real thing. This is under that people pleasing category. All right. So now we're going to start stepping into a little more detailed information. We're going to do a deeper dive, right? So far we talked about the characteristics of anger. We've talked about conscious versus subconscious anger. We've defined anger and different things like that. So now we need to identify the different types of anger. All right. And first up on our list, we have passive anger. So anger expressed subtly or indirectly, often unconscious. It shows up as sarcasm, procrastination, silent treatment, subtle sabotage. So that's what passive anger is. People do this a lot and they're not aware that they do it because they've been escaping to this passive area where they can avoid conflict while still venting their anger, right? Where you can't really say that they're being aggressive, right? So that's passive. Next up, we have aggressive anger, and that's direct, and hostile expression meant to intimidate or dominate. Shows up as yelling, physical violence, threats, and verbal abuse. So I see a lot of that as well in certain cultures, in certain areas of humanity where aggressive anger is, in my opinion, I don't have the tools to communicate what I need to communicate, or I can't convince you to do something that I want. I'm going to beat you, or I'm going to hurt you, or I'm going to dominate you to get what I want. To me, that is, again, a form of barbarism where emotional barbarism, where people have not fully developed methods for success that, when all else failed, the brute force method will work, right? So I've seen that. Next up, we have assertive anger. And assertive anger is pretty much healthy, respectful, and constructive expression. Shows up as setting firm boundaries, stating needs calmly, and advocating for justice. So assertive anger, remember we talked about that. We talked about destructive anger and constructive anger. So assertive anger is one of those things that is constructive anger. So this is a type of anger that we want to display. This is a healthy anger. Okay. Next up, we have chronic anger, persistent or habitual anger, often due to unresolved trauma or long-standing resentment. Shows up as frequently irritable, chip on the shoulder, or negative worldview, right? So that's, I think, a lot of racist people fall into chronic anger. I think there's some type of unresolved trauma there, or some type of resentment that they have for humanity or for a certain group of people, and they just don't have the tools to deal with it. So if they don't have the tools to spend time looking at themselves in the mirror, they got to stay away from that mirror and look at as many other mirrors as they can to avoid the mirror that they have to stand in, right? It's easier to punch down on someone else than it is to actually look in the mirror and get yourself straight. So I believe chronic anger is one of those things that, we see a lot of. I do not think I have chronic anger. So real quick, check and see, do you think you have passive anger? Do you think you have aggressive anger? All right. If you got aggressive anger, be careful. People go to prison or get hurt really bad. So be careful with your aggressive anger. Do you have assertive anger? I believe I have some forms of assertive anger. I'm getting to that point. As your host, I am a student as well to this information. I have not mastered this information. The whole point of me doing this is making sure that we have a blueprint or a map we can follow when we emotionally find ourselves in some of these places. So this information is also new to me as well. And it has been working for me over the past 2 or 3 episodes where, situations come up and I think about unresolved trauma. I think about self-hatred and I think about anger, right? So as I grow and absorb this information, I'm trying to fashion myself in areas such as assertive anger so that that's what I'm giving out to the best of my ability. Next up, we got volatile anger. And volatile anger is unpredictable and explosive anger triggered by minor provocations. Shows up as sudden yelling, property damage, lashing out unexpectedly. Someone may bust their lover's car windows or, random yelling in the store. And see, that's volatile anger, meaning it's unpredictable. You have no idea when this person might go off. But do you think you have volatile anger? Do you just find yourself being unpredictable and explosive with your anger? All right. Next up, we have judgmental anger. This arises from moral superiority or criticism of others' behaviors, right? Shows up as condemning others, harsh self-righteousness, and demanding perfection. I've experienced this again in my professional life, where there are people that have this elevated view, downward look towards, certain people. I'm not one of those people. But I have seen this in the wild. It is a disgusting thing. What comes to mind is this thing called educationalism, where basically someone doesn't respect you because you don't have the educational qualifications that they do. And you see a lot of that with judgmental anger. All right. Next up, we have self-directed anger. And this is internalized anger directed at oneself, can lead to self-harm or depression. So it shows up as negative self-talk, self-punishment, self-hate, and perfectionism. So think about that. Perfectionism is a form of self-directed anger, which is also a form of self-hate. Internalized anger directed at oneself can lead to self-harm or depression. So I think an example of this is someone failing, to make the game winning putt or something like that, is how I'm viewing that. But do you think you have self-directed anger? Do you have internalized anger directed at you? All right. Next up, we have retaliatory anger. I see a lot of this in the United States, everywhere. This is a human thing. It's aimed at revenge or getting even. Let's pause there for a second. This is what's happening out here. You got a bunch of people that have unresolved trauma, that are suffering from self-hatred, and they have displacement. And because they don't have the tools and the processes and strategies necessary to escape, self-hatred or escape unresolved trauma, that displacement for whatever else they have going on turns into retaliatory anger, right? Where the slightest thing can cause you to go over the ledge, right? It shows up as sabotaging others, an eye for an eye actions, and plotting retribution. I see that in the young culture a lot. Not just them. We're not just going to throw them in there, but just throughout the world. Think about it at all levels. At all levels, you see people retaliating on each other. Oh, you did this to me? Oh, I'm going to go do this even worse than you. Again, in my opinion, that is emotional barbarism. Okay? That's retaliatory anger. I just can't get with that because, that's how cycles continue forever, because people don't know how to resolve their anger or resolve their trauma and different things like that. So it just keeps showing up. But I've seen a lot of that in my lifetime, especially living where I lived in the past. This is a real thing. And if you want to see examples of it, just watch the news. Somebody did something and then someone did this. And it's an impulsive thing because normally the second person to strike back is the person that's going to end up going too far. And now you're sacrificing your freedom. Now you're sacrificing your happiness. I told my buddy, and I talk to him all the time, and I tell him, I say, there's no way I'm sacrificing my peace and happiness to retaliate on someone for trivial or small things or even large things. Like, my upbringing taught me that vengeance isn't mine, and that there is balance here, and that those that do wrong will draw wrong to them. And that's how I kind of carry that I truly believe that in nature, that nature has balance, that what you put out is what you receive. So that's how I deal with that. Sorry for the long explanation. Next up, I had to give you that because that's something that's affecting our inner cities. That's something that's affecting our low income neighborhoods. This whole retaliatory anger, this whole retaliation thing, right? Because people can't consolidate or resolve their trauma, their self-hatred, in their anger. All right, next up, we got constructive anger, used as motivation for growth, justice, or reform. Constructive anger. That's what we want. We want to find ways to use anger as motivation for growth, justice, and reform. Now, how do you do that? Okay, let's say you're angry about something. You're at work and something happened, and you come home and you feel that anger within yourself. Why not go hit the bench? Go do 150 push-ups. Go work out, go exercise. Take that dark energy, that anger, and channel it straight into an opportunity to improve yourself. You have to use these emotions to your benefit, right? That's the only way that you're going to get the most out of negative energy, right? My thing is taking negative energy and turning it into a positive for myself. All right, overwhelmed anger occurs when one feels emotionally or mentally overloaded and can't cope. I've been here maybe once or twice in life, but normally I give myself options. How about you? Have you ever felt overwhelmed anger? It shows up as snapping under pressure, crying while angry, or yelling during multitasking, right? Next up, fear-based anger, triggered by fear, anxiety, or vulnerability. It shows up as controlling behavior, hypervigilance, or lashing out defensively. All right. So we've covered our different types of anger. I want you to identify if it applies to you, your self-directed anger, your retaliatory anger, your constructive anger, your overwhelmed anger. Identify all of these different things. You want to document this stuff one way or the other because you need to go back to this information to throw solutions to it, right? But does any of this apply to you? And if so, what exactly is it? Document that or think about it. And we're going to throw solutions at that towards the end of this episode. So next up, one of my favorite, we have relatives of anger, connected emotions and states. These emotional states are not anger itself, but are closely tied to its causes, expressions, or consequences, often called anger's cousins. So we're going to go through this list, and it's quite a few, so we'll go through fast. But I want you to think about some of this stuff. I want you to think about when you say, oh, I'm frustrated or anything like that. Frustration is a cousin of anger. It often precedes anger when you're frustrated. I've seen guys playing video games and something happened and they're frustrated that they can't figure out what's going on. And then when they reach the precipice or when they reach their tipping point, they rage out, they break their keyboards. And you can watch this on YouTube. Look at people that are raging out on video games, breaking their keyboards and different stuff like that, because it occurs when efforts are blocked or goals are not met. Why won't this work? Do you think you have frustration, right? And how are you dealing with frustration? Do you have positive ways to deal with frustration? Next up, irritation is a low intensity form of anger. It's like anger building up. Like, man, I'm irritated and I feel it, right? But with frustration and irritation, as we learn that these are relatives of anger, we have a new view now. I don't want to say I'm frustrated anymore, because if I say I'm frustrated or I find myself frustrated, A, I've ran out of options, right? And B, I'm supporting a cousin of anger. I'm supporting a gateway to anger. Same thing with irritation. So minor annoyance or discomfort, for example, background noise or slow drivers. That goes to that road rage piece. People with road rage are probably experiencing high levels of irritation, which manifests into anger. Next up, we got resentment, long-term form of suppressed anger. Whew. I had no idea resentment was anger's cousin. Wow, long-term form of anger. Built over repeated violations or slights, often unspoken. Next up, we have bitterness. Resentment that has calcified over time. That's that scorned, sour grapes, type of anger or expression that could lead you to anger. I'll never forgive them. Highly toxic emotional state. If you ever find yourself saying, I'll never forgive them, you're basically saying, I'll never have peace of mind. Forgiveness is a necessary thing if peace is the goal, if happiness is the goal, if fulfillment is the goal. You must have forgiveness. Okay? Contempt, anger, and disgust, especially in close relationships. Eye rolling, mocking, and superiority are some of the strongest predictors of divorce. So, contempt. Do you have contempt for your spouse, or does your spouse have contempt for you? Or do you have contempt for anyone? Right? Where you're angry and disgusted. I can relate. I've been down the disgusted road before in my life. All right, so let's keep moving. Next up, we have passive aggression, indirect expression of anger to avoid confrontation. So a coward's way to be angry, right? You get a lot of people like this. I see this a lot in my professional field where there's just people that they're really angry, but they can't be as angry as they want to be because they have a job and they have to pay their bills and stuff. So they find shortcuts and cheap ways to be angry, right? Which to me is coward and anti-intellectual. If you have an issue with someone, you should be able to have a conversation in, in a healthy way without all of the microaggressions, without all of the indirect comments and different things like that, because you don't have the heart or the courage to say what you really feel, right? You want, again, that gray area, hiding in that gray area. All right. So saying fine when upset, avoiding tasks, and snide remarks. So hostility is a cousin of anger, a persistent generalized state of anger, constant negativity or aggressive energy towards others or the world, right? So again, we get a few groups of people that fall into that hostility, that aggression towards others in the world. The question is, why are they, or why are you being hostile? If you're a human being that's happy, again, we say the greatest feeling we ever felt was happiness. How does happiness and hostile be in the same sentence? If you're hostile, more than likely it's my educated guess here that you're miserable. You're alive where pleasure exists, where beautiful things exist. The earth is beautiful. And you are getting caught up in some part of your brain that makes you feel hostile and makes you express hostility. That's telling me that you're not looking in the mirror enough, because we got more than enough work to do on ourselves to increase our happiness, to ensure that we achieve the fulfillment in our lifetime that we need to feel, or whatever we choose to, aim for with our goals. We need to feel that. Being hostile beats us out of that opportunity. All right. Next up, rage. Oh, this is a huge one. Extreme and an uncontrolled form of rage. I have seen this where people have completely lost themselves internally. In my life, I may have displayed rage maybe once or twice as I think about it as a child or something like that, but I kind of got away from rage. All right. Loss of self-control, blackouts, and physical violence. But I do recall having that rage, right? Let's talk about that. Do you have rage? Are you hostile? Do you think you're passive aggressive? If so, you are operating within the expressions of anger. meaning you're leading up to that point. And remember, when we started this episode, we wanted to identify if we had conscious or subconscious anger, if we had rage, passive aggression. You must be honest with yourself. You must think about these things and see if they apply to you. Okay. And if they do, jot that down. We're going to hit them with solutions a little later. Next up, we have vengeance and revenge. Response to deep anger, especially after betrayal or humiliation. I think about a few rappers that experienced this. I think about a few friends growing up in high school that experienced this. Vengeance and that retaliation mentality that's within society, that's within our culture, that's within humanity, to me, does not serve a great purpose. It's more destructive than it is constructive, right? Intent to hurt back, they deserve what's coming. That's a broken, hurt person. When you get to the point that you can't resolve your trauma, that someone has to be harmed for you to resolve your drama, you are a certified human hater. Certified. And if you're a human that hates humans, what can we surmise from that? We're just being honest. And in order for us to truly assess who we are and where we are, we have to be honest. And just because you may find yourself in a position of human hating or what, doesn't mean you can't escape it. It doesn't mean that you can't provide solutions and options for yourself so that you could get away from this type of mentality that's destroying humans, that's hurting humans, and different things like that. Now, again, I am probably 10 years ahead of my time with No Self-Hate, understanding that our goal is to accelerate the evolution of human emotional intelligence, but vengeance has always been negative. I have not, or I can't think of any times that vengeance was positive, right? And yeah, actually I have. I've seen friends that have like gift contests, right? Like one year a friend bought another friend an iPad. He got revenge on my other friend by buying it was like some type of watch or something for him. They were actually having vengeance in a good way, right? Oh, how dare you get me an iPad? I'm gonna get you this, right? And I think that's one example of positive vengeance. I could be wrong. Next up, jealousy. Ooh, anger about loss or fear of losing something to someone else. Think about that. Think about that. Have you ever been angry about loss or fear of losing something to someone else? And it made you jealous? Not to be confused with envy, but it made you jealous, right? An example of that is especially in romantic or competitive contexts. People get jealous of each other all the time. I see a lot of this out here in the world. I think it's just a natural reaction to the fear of losing something. Next up, we got envy. Anger mixed with inadequacy about what others have. So a lot of people that are on these social media websites are going through looking at all this stuff that they see that other people have, and they're becoming envious. And they're not even aware of it. It's like a subconscious anger, right? They're becoming envious, which can lead them to anger. In a description and behavior is, why them and not me, right? Why them and not me? Because you didn't put in the work. Because you're so worried about being a victim of the ranks of society that you're not actually trying to elevate yourself within the ranks of society. You're watching everybody else do it. You're watching from the sideline. If you want to, resolve envy within yourself, or, if you know anyone that may be suffering from that, is you want them to just put their best foot forward. Go out there and get in the game. There's no telling what you could win. There's no telling what you could gain, right? Next up, shame can trigger internalized anger or defensive outbursts. I hate myself, or lashing out to hide vulnerability. That is horrible. Love thyself first. No self-hate. Love thyself first. The center of your universe is you. You authorize faith. You authorize relationships. You authorize beliefs. You authorize behaviors. Love thyself first. Okay. Next up, guilt can become self-directed anger. I can't believe I did that. Self-criticism or punishment, which is a form. Remember, we said excessive self-criticism is a form of self-hatred. If you feel guilty, ask for forgiveness for whoever you've harmed. Forgive yourself and move on with your life. Next up, fear. Often masked by anger to avoid vulnerability. Think about that. It says often masked by anger to avoid vulnerability. When someone is scared. My uncle used to tell me the loudest person in the room is not the toughest person in the room. The loudest person in the room is kind of going under this. It's fear. They're often masked by anger to avoid vulnerability. They want to seem tougher than what they actually are. They really don't want to go through any types of situation. So it's sort of like someone beating their chest to scare you off, or a snake hissing to try to get you to go away because they really don't want a problem, right? Anger as armor against feeling unsafe or exposed. Next up, impatience. Low-level form of frustration and control seeking. Feeling short-tempered with delays or slowness. Next up, defensiveness. Reactive anger when feeling attacked or criticized. Well, you're not perfect either. A shield against emotional injury. So I see a lot of defensiveness, and a lot of people don't fully understand what it means to be defensive, but it's pretty clear here. Whenever you have reactive anger when feeling attacked or criticized or critiqued, remember, criticism is also an opportunity for growth. You can't see yourself. You can't observe yourself because you're in your own eyes. Sometimes you got to trust the people around you to provide you with some information that can help you better yourself. Okay? Stop letting defensiveness stop you from receiving information that could help you, right? Oh, I did that, or you're not perfect either. No one's perfect. That's anti-intellectual to say at this point, well, you're not perfect. It was never assumed that any human being was perfect. That's just a way to shield against emotional injury when someone has said something that you could potentially take the wrong way. Right? Next up, disgust often occurs with anger, especially when there's a moral or ethical violation. I have felt that several times in my lifetime. May intensify judgmental or retaliatory anger. That is true. You are most vulnerable for retaliation when you are disgusted by something that has happened. And I'm not sure if you are familiar, if everyone's felt that emotion or that expression of anger where you're disgusted, right? Next up, insecurity. This leads to controlling or aggressive behavior as a defense mechanism. Anger used to protect fragile self-esteem or image. Whew. A lot of women say men are insecure, and a lot of men say that women are insecure. So when we think about insecurity at a human level, there are some things that are at play there that come to mind. For example, self-hatred is the first thing that comes to mind, because if you're loving yourself properly and you're accepting yourself as God made you, or as you were made, whatever your beliefs may be. For me, I am a spiritual being, so but I don't want to force that on you. Whatever your beliefs may be, you were made that way. And if you don't love that, that is a form of self-hatred to me, right? And again, This is all subjective. This is just my opinion. Abandonment wound triggers anger when people feel left, dismissed, or emotionally neglected. You don't care about me, rooted in deeper attachment trauma. Pain and emotional and physical, frequently transmuted into anger to feel stronger or more in control, right? I once rolled my ankle playing sports, and the pain was so bad that I just got angry. People were kept coming up, "Are you all right?" No, I'm not all right. And I end up kind of getting angry from that. So I do see the pain there, and think about it at an emotional level. When you've been emotionally hurt, it could potentially lead you to anger if you don't have the tools to work through and resolve that issue. All right, next up, common in trauma survivors. I'm not hurt, I'm furious, right? And then last but not least, we have hatred. So hatred, perceived threat to identity, safety, or values. Deep sustained anger toward a person, group, or idea. Perceived threat to identity, safety, or values. If you're out here hating, you need to strengthen your identity of self, you need to increase your safety, and you need to enhance your values. Okay? There is no excuse for hatred. You're a human, and you're around humans. Why are you hating on humans? There's a million other things you could be doing with your time, rather than walking around having your life fueled by a hate fuel that you walk around and display and show to everyone so that you could get some type of attention. Or I don't even get it. I don't get why people dedicate their lives to these different hate groups and different hate things. It's just saying that, hey, I'm not interested enough to focus on myself. I need to focus on another group more than I focus on myself. And it's kind of giving like obsessive vibes. Like it's like obsessive, to be a hater, you're obsessed. Like, to hate someone, you have to have watched them and whatever to get to where you are. Avoid this if you can. It's a disgusting thing. All right. So, real quick, visit NOSELFHATE.com. Shop mental health awareness apparel and accessories. Sign up for an account to access exclusive resources, empowering content, and upcoming member-only perks. All right. So, join the movement, because healing starts with self-love, accelerating the evolution of human emotional intelligence. Get your no self-hate gear. I got mine. All right. So, let's kind of review what we went through. So we looked at all the different types of anger, and then we looked at the relatives of anger. And again, we want to run through and see if any of that applies to us. Okay? So the disadvantages of anger, destructive anger. When ignored, repressed, or misdirected, anger becomes destructive to self and others. It damages relationships, clouds judgments, leads to violence or abuse, suppresses vulnerability, turns inward, self-destruction, affects physical health, creates cycles of resentment, reinforces blame culture, triggers shame and regret. Okay? So I want you to think about that. Yeah, I want you to think about that. And we have to understand how anger affects our relationships as well, right? All right, so now that we looked at some of the disadvantages of it, now let's look at some of the benefits of anger. This is constructive anger. We just took a look at destructive anger, but let's look at constructive anger. When processed healthily, anger can be a tool for growth, empowerment, and protection. It protects boundaries, motivates actions, boosts self-respect, reveals inner truths, drives emotional clarity, empowers the vulnerable, fuels assertiveness, supports healing if explored. Okay. So those were the disadvantages and the advantages of anger. So now we want to look into, how does anger affect our relationships? All right. So all right, so now we want to look at, how does anger affect our relationships? All right. So first things first, it destroys trust. Trust erodes with anger. When someone can't trust you to be stable or emotionally stable or intelligent enough to manage your anger, you become dangerous to them, right? Creates fear or withdrawal, blocks vulnerability, reinforces control or dominance. All right, this is how anger affects others. Reinforces control or dominance, encourages retaliation, right? So how does anger affect relationships? Positive effects or healthy anger? Okay, so how does anger affect relationships, right? Positive effects of healthy anger. So we just looked at, how, you know, destructive anger affects relationships. Now let's look at how positive anger affects relationships. So it builds trust. It's kind of basically the opposite of what we just read, right? It clarifies boundaries. It fosters intimacy, right? Promotes conflict resolution. Encourages respect. This is pretty simple. So we've looked at many angles of anger, and we were able to receive an education today on some of the basics of anger. Now, to cover everything in anger, this would be a 5-part episode, right? So we're just touching on it, and we are enhancing our vocabulary and understanding of anger. So now we get to the point, now that we've wrote down, whether we're procrastinators, whether we're depressed, whether we are frustrated, or we use frustration or irritation. We've gone through that whole process. Now we got to figure out, how do we manage anger, right? And that's simple. So, opportunities to resolve conscious anger. Okay, conscious, which we consider to be good, because conscious anger is sort of that assertive anger, sort of that constructive anger, your ability to express anger in a positive way. You need to continue to do that, right? So when you find yourself in a tough conversation with someone that may, potentially cause you anger, before you react, what I do is I always stop that first reaction. Whatever my brain sends me, I reject that first one. I reject it. Okay, because I know that one is impulsive, it may be emotional, and I need to use logic. So I need to pause and breathe before reacting, right? I need to take a few breaths where someone has said something or done something that could potentially cause me to be angry. First thing I think is, okay, breathe. Okay. Here's why. Anger triggers the fight or flight response. Calming the body first helps regain emotional control. This really works. When you're really feeling that impulse, when you're really feeling those emotions, if you just breathe and get some oxygen in your veins and into your blood and some logic in your mind, I don't believe you could be emotional and logical at the same time. I don't think so. I may be thinking about that wrong, and if you have an example of that, please provide it in the chat. But I can't think of I don't know if you could be emotional and logical at the same time, because emotional is feeling based, right? But anyway, let's keep moving. So, opportunities to resolve conscious anger. Number two, name the anger directly. Say to yourself or aloud, I feel angry because of this. You must get that energy out of you. You must get that angry in. It's energy and it wants to get out. So you have to first speak it out. Okay. An example is, I feel angry because my boundaries were crossed. You're communicating what you're feeling in a positive, healthy way. All right. So next up, why naming the emotion shifts. So naming the emotion shifts it from the reactive limbic system to the rational prefrontal cortex. Pretty much what I'm saying. It switches this from emotional to logical. All right, you want to think logical. What would be the greater good in this situation? Even though this person has said this to me that could potentially make me angry, what options do I have for peace? What options do I have for the greater good? Is what you want to think. Next up, identify the need or value being violated. Ask, what do I need right now? Or what boundary got crossed? Some examples could be respect, trust, safety, fairness, or honesty. Or it could be all of them, right? But identify specifically what it is, because we want to communicate this in a healthy manner so that we can resolve this issue with solution oriented solutions. You want to be solution oriented while you're taking care of that. All right. Communicate assertively. Use non-blaming language. I feel blank when blank because blank. What I need is blank. I feel hurt. So an example is, I feel hurt and angry when you ignore my calls. I need open communication. Be able to communicate what it is that you want. Okay? Use non-blaming language. Don't be a victim. Don't walk into conversations looking to be the first person to be the biggest victim. I see that a lot, where a lot of people leverage victimhood because it's the easiest thing to do. I want you to challenge yourself to be emotionally intellectual. I want you to challenge yourself to not react like the typical 12-year-old or the typical 20-year-old or the typical 40-year-old. Don't I want you to start elevating yourself. I want your emotional intellectuality to have a certain level of class, a certain area that you're not willing to resort to win. And that is victimhood. That is the lowest hanging fruit. We are all at different levels of education and understanding. The number one leverage used across the board by all educations, groups, whatever, is sometimes when people leverage victimhood for manipulation purposes. You don't want to walk into this trying to manipulate the situation or be the victim. You're walking into this looking for solutions. You're walking into this expecting everyone to leave this conversation happy, at peace, and still your relationship still intact. That is the goal. The goal isn't to go have a conversation that costs you your relationships or something because you didn't have the ability to communicate properly. Just work on your ability to communicate. All right. Sorry about that. So, channel the energy constructively. Write about it. We talked about that in resolving our trauma. It's important that you write this information down. It's something about running it through your brain all the way down to your fingertips. It kind of sticks with you a lot better. Move through it. Walk, run, dance, hit a punching bag. Get that energy out of yourself, right? To resolve conscious anger. All it is managing. At this point, you're just managing. You're going to get angry. Everything or every human, I believe, has experienced some form of anger. All right? Create from it. You know, when I find myself in places where I might be a little down or I might be a little angry, I go create. I love to create art, music, whatever it is. I will create whatever I feel like creating in that moment. So that is a great vent for, anger, to go be productive with it. And again, this is constructive anger, where we're talking about taking something that could potentially be negative and using it as a benefit for ourselves. And then last but not least, for opportunities to resolve conscious anger, you want to release or forgive. Let go of what you can't control. Forgiveness doesn't mean approval, it means freedom from holding on. You must learn forgiveness. If the goal is to be happy, if the goal is to feel fulfillment, you must learn forgiveness. Okay? All right, so we're almost done here. So, opportunities to resolve subconscious anger. So, first off, notice emotional or physical clues. Ask, do I feel chronically tense, fatigued, emotionally numb, or avoidant? Common signs, headaches. See, think about that now. This anger can affect your physical. It can cause, you know, high blood pressure, potentially strokes, different things like that. It is important to control and manage your stress and your anger in life. You must do this. It's chipping days off your life. It's giving you wrinkles on your face. It's making you look older than what you actually are. Okay? So, common signs, headaches, stomach tension, insomnia, sarcasm, passive aggression, and people pleasing. If it's hysterical, it's historical. Strong reactions often point to old pain. So you need to notice emotional and physical clues. That goes back to our self-aware piece, right? Where I gave the example that, you know, hypothetically pretend you're a robot that's just powered on and you're checking every system, you're checking your power supplies, you're checking your hydraulics. You want to go through and kind of feel what you are feeling like emotionally and physically, okay? To resolve subconscious anger, you must identify and pinpoint exactly the root cause of this anger. That's the most important part about subconscious anger. Next up, track the trigger backwards. Ask, when was the first time I felt this way? Who or what taught me to bury my anger? What am I not allowing myself to say or feel? Subconscious anger is often rooted in childhood invalidation. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Powerlessness, bullying, abuse, and neglect. Betrayal, being silenced, gaslit, or ignored. So you got to track the trigger backwards. And that trigger may lead all the way back to your childhood. Right? And we talked about unresolved trauma, unresolved childhood trauma. Meaning that something that happened to some of us at the age of 10 could potentially be a trending topic at the age of 40 because we haven't figured out a way to resolve that. So you need to track backwards. Again, the most important part here is identifying the root cause. And only you can do it. You're the only person that's in your brain. You're the only person that can see your stuff and see your life. Only you can go through your mind and track where the trigger goes. All right? Document that. And then we throw solutions at it. This is part of the solution. So now that we've tracked the trigger backwards, now we're going to start journaling and voice dumping. Try stream of consciousness journaling. I'm angry at blank because of this. You know, when you're writing and journaling, normally no one's going to read that. That's your freedom. That's where you let the anger out at. On that piece of paper or on your phone, because it's not going to hurt anyone, right? You let it out there aggressively, and then once you find better ways to communicate it, then you transfer what would have been, your initial response into a more healthy, greater good oriented, solution oriented reply of communication. Okay? Because all anger is it's communication that doesn't have a path, that doesn't have the correct format, right? And that's all it really is, okay? Or voice memo ranting. Talk to yourself like you're venting to a best friend. Let it be messy, angry, and raw. Do not edit or judge. Let that energy out. This is your vent. This is your gym. Whenever you feel that anger and you're emotionally intelligent enough to not want to let your anger harm or affect the people around you, right? You want to make sure that you're taking that journey that you need to vent that. And the best way to do it is through voice memos. I do it all the time when I'm struggling, or I want to document how I felt in a moment. I do it all the time, right? And I go back and listen to it. And I think to myself, man, why did I have to react that way? What law said I had to express myself this way? And why did I feel like I had to? What emotional law did I create for myself that says I have to communicate this way? All right. Next up, use the body to access the emotion. Do somatic exercising, shaking, punching a pillow, trauma release exercises. Try yelling into a towel, hitting a soft object, or stomping. The body remembers anger, the mind forgets. Remember that. I just told someone that yesterday. You can't trick your subconscious. I don't care how smart you are. If you think you could just take guilt and shame and throw it somewhere in the back of your mind and move on, no. Your heart is catching that frequency. Your heart feels it. You know, our hearts tell on us, in my opinion. It tells on us to us. Okay? Next up, inner child work. Visualize yourself at a younger age. Ask, what made you angry back then that no one listened to? Let that version of you speak freely. Again, we're going back to unresolved childhood trauma. Again, we're trying to resolve this trauma. You may discover long buried pain that still drives today's reactions. Why do I react this way when this happens? Is what you want to ask. Reprogram old beliefs. This is very important. Replace subconscious scripts like I can't express anger or I'll be abandoned. I have to be nice or people won't like me or love me. With truths like I'm allowed to feel and express anger safely. My emotions do not make me unlovable. You have to reverse the thought pattern that you've developed over the past however many years. You must wage war with miserable thoughts and negative ideologies within yourself. You must go back and change and uproot those pathways and create new pathways of thinking. Remember, what you believe, no one is forcing you to believe about anything. You could change it anytime you want. That voice in your head is what's telling you what to believe. It just needs to be reprogrammed to focus on greater good oriented, solution oriented, positive, healthy outcomes for your relationships, for work, for life, for anything. Okay. And then last but not least, seek safe spaces to express. Trauma-informed therapy. I love this. Trauma-informed care or trauma-informed therapy is people that understand that people are going through stuff. And we just can't go in rough handling people's emotions or rough handling people. We have to have a certain level of empathy, a certain level of grace, gracefulness, whenever we're dealing with people that need to be helped, right? It could be your friend, it could be your mother, it could be anybody. Always present yourself in a way that you're empathizing with someone so that when you find yourself seeking safe spaces, the same thing that you gave out is what you will receive. Find somewhere safe to express how you feel. Do breathe work in EMDR. It will be defined in the description for you. So, or we'll have those glossary terms. Anger release workshops. Trusted friends who allow raw honesty. Okay? You want to seek safe spaces to express. So a theme that I'm noticing from today, it's all about getting the energy out of you in positive, safe ways. If you could find ways to do that and you're conscious enough to pay attention to when you're angry, you can effectively change your anger. Work on your conscious anger. Work on identifying subconscious anger. But if you're following these opportunities that we discussed in today's episode, you should be on your way to a good place. The work that you still have to do is just identifying subconscious anger and conscious anger within yourself. Identify the relatives of anger's cousins. Identify each one that you use and minimize them. You don't have to be perfect. This is not being about being perfect. This is not about watching this episode one time and then perfectly aligning yourself with everything in it. It's going to take some time. Now, kudos to those that are capable of doing that. But that's not the expectation. It didn't take you one day to get to the way you are. So you got to take your time back, but you got to put the effort in and you got to make progress every day. You're going to slip up sometime. You're going to fall back. Forgive yourself, ask for forgiveness, apologize, and continue on your journey of growing, on your journey of improving and enhancing yourself. Use this information to create a greater version of you, a more happier version of you. All right, so understanding and healing anger as we get ready to shut this episode out. It was so much in this episode, I couldn't put the definitions in there. This thing would have been about 3 hours or 2 hours. All right, we're rolling up on an hour and 40 minutes. Okay, so understanding and healing anger. Anger is not the enemy, it's a messenger. It shows up to protect us, to reveal our values, and to signal when something is off. But when left unprocessed, anger mutates. It becomes resentment, bitterness, passive aggression, or even hatred. It damages relationships, distorts our identity, and disconnects us from love. There are many faces of anger. It can scream, rage. It can whisper, sarcasm. It can hide, jealousy, or it can fester in hatred. All right? Some anger is conscious. You feel it in the moment. Some anger is subconscious. You don't feel it, but it lives in your body, behaviors, or silence. But every form of anger, whether loud or buried, has a solution. Healthy expression through truth-telling, boundaries, and assertive communication. Emotional excavation, journaling, inner child work, or therapy to uncover buried pain. Pull that stuff up out of yourself. It's buried deep in you, or deep within you, under layers and years of memories. You have to peel all those memories back till you identify the ones that you need to. Somatic release, movement, breath, and embodiment practices to let the emotion move through you. Working out. There's nothing like it. Compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. The one who felt hurt, scarred, or scared, or unseen. Okay? You must always have self-compassion. We are not perfect. You will never be perfect. Okay? No one will. Stop setting these perfectionism standards for yourself. It's self-hatred. Love thyself first. Have compassion for yourself. Have compassion for your fellow human. Okay? Even hatred, one of anger's most destructive cousins, is just pain left unheard for too long. So next time you find yourself in a situation where somebody's spewing hatred at you, okay? Just remember, hatred, one of anger's most destructive cousins, is just pain left unheard for too long. So when you see these different groups and people, hate groups and races and all that, what have we learned about them and about their psychology? How did racism and racists get so much credibility? Doesn't make sense to me. You're a human that, in my opinion, was anti-intellectual enough to find another reason to hate another human, which that's what you are. That at an intellectual level, I will not entertain racist people. There's nothing to talk about here. If you're so bored in life that you have to create something where there's clearly nothing, because we're all human. I saw a video where a black guy gave a white guy a kidney. I saw a video where this one Hispanic guy gave this other guy a kidney. We're all compatible. You focusing on hate and being racist and different things like that, what is it doing? It's just helping you avoid that mirror for yourself and helping you avoid pleasure and happiness that you could be having for yourself. Stop wasting your time with hatred. It's not going anywhere. Right. Pulling up on the last slide here. So, to wrap everything up, you don't have to fear your anger. You just have to listen to it and manage it and process it in healthy, greater good, solution-oriented ways. All right? Because under every form of anger is a deeper truth. And beneath that truth is a part of you, longing to be healed and not silenced. Catch episode 2, Unresolved Trauma. It has steps and different things like that that you could use to heal yourself. Okay? And this is a form of healing as well. This is us enhancing ourselves. This is us becoming more emotionally intellectual. Okay? This is the work of no self-hate, accelerating the evolution of human emotional intelligence. Our goal is to turn pain into power, to turn anger into awareness and growth, and to turn wounds into wisdom in life. Okay? So, thank you so much for your time today, but let's get ready to shut this episode down properly. Today, we have our list of anger management affirmations to enhance your emotional technology. So, if you don't mind, if you would like to participate, repeat after me, because remember, we have to talk this stuff. We have to manifest this energy. I honor my anger, but I do not let it control me. I breathe in peace and exhale tension. I breathe in peace and exhale tension. Breathing matters. Breathing exercises can help with anger. My emotions are messengers, not masters. Yeah, I hear my emotions, but I'm the master of me. I get to dictate the way that I reply or the way that I choose to respond to any situation. Number 4, it's safe for me to feel and express my anger in healthy ways. That's all this is. All anger management is. It's taking the toxicness or toxicity of your thoughts and hostility and all of this stuff and repackaging it in a way that's a little more digestible for those that are around us and for ourselves, right? Next up, I choose clarity over chaos. Get away from the chaos of anger. You are a great person. You don't need anger to be happy. Anger is taken away from you. Anger is taken away from your excellence. Focus on pleasure. Focus on happiness. Focus on your goals. Stop wasting life and energy focused on displaying angry behavior and tearing down other human beings. Love thyself first. All right, next up, I will improve my anger management one day at a time. Just start one day at a time. Every day, try to get better. If you snap on somebody, your recovery time. Don't let them tell you snapped on them. Say, whoa, wait, hold on. I just came in kind of hot. I'm sorry. I'm working on some things, but that's not what my intent was. I got a little frustrated within myself and couldn't manage myself, and it came out the wrong way, but I'm working on myself. That right there is a victory for you today. If you could just catch yourself before you get angry and find greater good, solution-oriented, healthy ways to communicate your anger, you've beat the game. All right. Next up, I transfer my anger into truth, boundaries, and growth. I am in control of me, not your emotions. Your emotions are impulsive feelings. Feelings, if you go to season 1, episode 1, we talk about exactly what feelings are. And they are beneficial if you use them the right way. All right. Next up, I forgive those who have harmed me. I release the pain and anger. Forgive everybody that has broken you. I don't care if it's your family members. Let that energy go. Cancel that subscription to misery. Move on with your life. Okay? Stop waiting for folks to come apologize. Hey, look, a lot of people don't know what to do. And you could be waiting on an apology for your entire life. Okay? Forgive them. Love thyself and move on with your life. Okay? We got forgiveness IQ coming up soon on our next episode or 2. We're going to go over forgiveness IQ, and I'm going to help break down how you can learn how to forgive people. We're going to build some opportunities to forgive people and increase our forgiveness IQ. And then last but not least, no self-hate. Love thyself first. We don't have time. We're temporal beings. Stop wasting another day. Today is the day. Today is the day. You take the first step. You put the effort in and watch the results. If you don't believe me, put the effort in and watch the results. Just you watching this video today has enhanced your understanding of emotional intelligence and anger and how to manage it. So you got some tools. Go use them. All right. And I want to thank you all for watching and giving me your energy, your observation, for participating, for supporting No Self Hate. We are so grateful. Yeah, thank you so much. And like, subscribe, share, comment, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Peace.